Let's transition and talk a little bit of email versus text. So, in my mind, this is an and conversation, not an or conversation. But for many docs out there, maybe you purchased, and we've all done it. We purchase software, and we're like, oh, it does this, but it doesn't do this, and often there's this components, right? You might have a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole puzzle fitting together, and it's like, oh, well, maybe that's good enough for now. I think it's important for people to understand the difference between email and text, why they're different, and how that generates a different response. And if we just kick it off with emailing in a practice, texting in a practice at a high level, how do you think about the application of each? Then we'll get into the actual action steps that docs can take with both mediums to generate more business, to connect with the people at a better and higher level, and ultimately be able to move the levers, as we've previously discussed, in terms of helping as many people as possible, generating a profit for that, and staying connected and engaged with the community of people that know, like, and trust you.
You know, one of the most popular questions chiropractors have these days is around technology. What do I use? Do I text people? Do I email people? Do I call people? Do I send them direct mail pieces? Like, what we're asking is, what is the right technology to use to communicate with people? There's very few people that would ever, question whether or not they need a phone or a phone number, right? Well, why do you need that? So people can call you and you can call them. Text and email is that same type of thing. It's just a different tool used in different ways. We know what a phone number and a phone does. You call people and you talk. Well, that works for certain things, but we're living in a mobile world. Most of us, I don't even have a telephone besides my mobile phone. Okay, most of us don't. If you asked me, I'd prefer to get an email or a text than talk on the phone these days. And I think most people feel the same these days, unless it's somebody you really want to talk to. And that's not my chiropractor's office. So maybe my chiropractor's office. But for most people, most of the time, that is not how they want to be communicated with. So there is a modernization in today's technologically driven world that us heartfelt, hands-on culture needs to come up to speed with. So what does that mean? That means understand, like when it's appropriate to call somebody, what to say when you call somebody, you should know when it's appropriate to text somebody and what's appropriate to text. And you should know what's appropriate to email and what's appropriate to email and how often you email. So we break these things down into what's the technology and then what can you do with the technology? So phone is obvious. You can call people to talk to them. You can confirm their appointments. You can follow up when they don't make their appointments. You can have one person talk to one person. Oftentimes there's a ping pong match of leaving a message and calling back and leaving a message and calling back, which is why it's become probably the most inefficient way to communicate. Most personal, but most inefficient. A lot of people like the concept of text because, well, people who sell text services love to brag about their open rates, like 95%, 90+% of people open texts. Well, that's because you can't not really open a text. So everybody opens a text. Doesn't mean you like it, doesn't mean you want it, doesn't mean you did anything with it. It might mean you were annoyed by it, but those that like to be blinded by numbers are blinded by numbers. So without context, that's, 90%, great, let's do that. The real issue is, what should you be texting and how often should you be texting? And the answer is, you should be texting things that you can communicate quickly. We missed you at your last appointment. Click here to reschedule your next one. We haven't seen you in a while. Click here to make your come on back. Those are perfectly appropriate ways to text people. But you would not text somebody a paragraph teaching them about their health, their well-being, or their problem. That wouldn't be appropriate to put in a text. People would block you and stop receiving your text. So if it is a quick, transactional, to the point, we missed you, click here. We haven't seen you in a while, click here. That's perfectly appropriate in a text, and most people wouldn't be offended by that. They'd go, okay, well, I miss you too, but I'm not ready, or they wouldn't be offended by it. Frequent, long texts will not be received well. So text is a really smart way of communicating quick transactional communications. Email has become the best way to stay in touch with all of your past people on a consistent basis without it being as personal as having somebody pick up a phone, which many don't do any longer, without it being as, I'll say, personal as a text. If you want to say something longer than "we missed you, click here," then you probably should say it in an email. And if you do it appropriately, which is not, "Hey, we have an open house. We need more new patients. This week you should come in. We need more new patients. This week you should come in." But you're actually what we refer to as teaching and inviting consistently. We ask doctors all the time, "Do you email your patients?" "Yes." "How often?" Okay, well, what do you email them?" "Things sometimes."
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't sound like much of a plan or a strategy. So it's understanding, how do you automate things? And that's what the benefit of technology. As much as you go, "I hate technology." Technology is great when it works. It solves a lot of problems and really takes a lot of pressure off of people. Why? Because technology can reproduce a voice or a message without the drawbacks of human day-to-day reality. You don't have to know if they woke up and were on a good mood or bad mood. We don't have to make sure they show up or they didn't show up. We don't have to know if they're over busy doing something else and they can't get to this. Automations and technology are brilliant when you can set them and forget them. And weekly emails that keep your name, face, and message, your brand, in people's face because you actually want to help them on what we call their journey to better health, and giving them the ability to click back into your practice, to click and ask a question, to click and refer somebody. Doing that appropriate, I'll call it caring gesture, on a weekly basis to those that say, "Yeah, I want to receive it," is about one of the smartest things you can do. Why? Because if you've been in practice for a period of time, if you have an email list of hundreds, if not thousands of people, I'll go so far as to make the claim that your number one business asset is your email list. The number of patients you've seen over the years that are no longer coming back to you is your greatest business opportunity you're probably ignoring. And so what we teach, what we offer, our Spark system texts people that haven't been in 60 days and 125 days. "We haven't seen you in a while. Click here to schedule." And when they do and they make it to your office, you only pay when they show up. The more consistent way to do it is each and every week, emails go out to everybody. We know chiropractors that have thousands of people on their email list that they are ignoring. And there are hundreds of people on those email lists that are going to other chiropractors right this week, which is nonsensical. So if you kind of take a step back and look at what's happening in the profession, you'll see most chiropractors are just trading patients. Instead of keeping in touch with their past patients, "No, I wouldn't do that. I've got a market for new ones." "Well, how do you do that?" "Well, we do ads." "And how do you do that?" "With deep discounts that get them in." And then they come in and you go, "You ever been to a chiropractor before?" And they go, "Yeah, I have." And you go, "Who did you see?" And they go, "The guy down the street." And you say to yourself, "Well, how come you didn't go back to him and you're coming to me?" And the answer is this: outside of the exception, "I had a really bad experience," which is the exception. We have 90+% satisfaction rates. If they didn't have a terrible experience, which is the exception, the reason they went to somebody else and not you is because it was very clear how to schedule, how much it was going to cost, and how soon they can get in and what they're going to pay. That clarity is why they go to a new person and not back to you. And that's crazy. So email allows doctors the appropriate way to teach and invite consistently. If you want to make your practice easier, more profitable, more fun, and experience more freedom, then check out Patient Pilot's weekly reactivation emails to pilot more of your past patients back into your practice. Check them out at thesmartchiropractor.com.